call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Ms. Schwartz, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That will take us to reports. We will have the curriculum report tonight.
Yes, we have Dr. Gump with us tonight, and between her and Dr. Allen, they're sharing the latest recommendations on the work that our curriculum team did this summer. So, Dr. Gump?
Thank you. So you will see here that our last summer curriculum review committee met and we looked over 5 courses. And we do have 4 courses for you tonight to consider for approval. Joining me in the audience is Miss Lisa Melton, and she's serving as our chair from that committee. We did have 3 committee members in attendance that night to go over these 5 courses. So happy to answer any questions that you have about these courses or anything else related to our curriculum movement.
All right. Any questions on the curriculum or the scopes of those? No.
We would be prepared to bring back the 4 that have the yeses, bring those back as part of consent agenda as soon as next time, and we'll bring the 5th one back when it's ready.
So for the 4 that are up for the approval, was it unanimous that they should be moved forward?
Oh yeah, you see here the writing that I put together, it comes from the feedback and it's all centered around the praise that they have, the questioning. Many of the questions, I go ahead and try to write that so that you see questions that were asked that evening, but many, if not all of them, are answered or they're in the form of like minor edits that when I go back to the writers, they can clearly see was this supposed to be bolded and this wasn't. It just doesn't look uniform. It's more things like that. If it's more about the content, that question is answered there in the group, and that happened that night. All questions. It was even written on several of the responses. All questions were answered.
Okay, very good.
You had said that 3 members were available to.
Correct.
How many members total are in that group?
Yeah. 11 members the last time that you all, I forget when this committee was originally formed, so forgive me, but 11 members had said they wanted to participate in this committee. Since I've been in this role, I have never had an acknowledgement from all 11 of those when invited. Some of these candidates, like I could count at least 3 that have never responded, and I've personally never met in this role. So I continue to email and invite them because they said they wanted to be a part of it, but they have not yet participated this year.
Okay.
So these 11 would have indicated a year ago at this time on our recruitment with the community that they had an interest in participating in the committee. So we're putting the word out there now where people in the community can show an interest in any of these committees. So that recruitment's going on for the back to school.
I guess there was a lot of debate and work that went into developing these committees, and I think that the committees have done a great job. It's not anything against the committee at all. I'm just wondering if we need a little more structure around, like, if we're going to have 7 spots, we choose 7 people. I don't know who we is, but we choose 7 people, and then there has to be some sort of quorum around that. Makes me a little uncomfortable that we had 3 people out of 11,
Sure.
discussing this. And that's nothing against the work that was done. It's not anything like that. It's just more of the process.
Sure.
I suppose. So maybe something to chew on. I don't know that the board needs to talk about
Well,
it.
the other thing that's a little bit unusual is we're not usually doing the curriculum in late summer.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit unique to the circumstances. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and we're pretty excited to get the word out. What we've done this year is we promote, there's two main things that we've done so far. We were promoting the committees in the spring as the school year was ending. And this year we're trying it as we're kind of the back to school mode.
Yeah.
So a year ago, we would secure all these potential volunteers, and then we would do that in May, and then they didn't hear from us until August or September. So this year we're just waiting until August or September, because that's then once they show an interest, we can get them engaged a little bit more quickly.
Yeah.
And the second thing that is different is on the evaluation reports that we have committee participants fill out for us, we actually pulled some of the committee feedback. So when parents who participated this last year in our committees are praising what they liked about serving on the committees, we went ahead and put that in the promotional materials, and it had a pretty immediate reaction. We've got the very first time that we promoted it, we got a fair number of people that are interested in our committees. So I think those two changes should help us. And we won't, I mean, it's not our preference to get people together in July to do curriculum review, but I agree with you. Three is pretty slim, but they were highly engaged.
Yeah, and that's great that they're
Yeah.
engaged. And in summer, I think that's pretty darn good. I know I'm part of one committee, but it's always on a night that I've got, to run a kid to soccer practice. It's hard to get to these things. So
Right.
I'm not throwing stones here. We built the process. It's a good process. Just trying to mature it a little bit, maybe.
Nope.
That's all.
Agree. Thank you.
We had 6 or 7 at the fall and spring that were actually at the evening and engaged, and I would say steady throughout the year. I had 8 or 9 that would communicate with me and just said, like, I truly can't be there, like, want to. So just a few of those 11 that really haven't come back since they initiated it.
All right, very good. Anything further? All right, so we'll bring those back at the board meeting.
2
on
weeks.
2 weeks for approval. Thank you. And thank you for your work. All right, that will take us to unfinished business. We'll start with the superintendent search firm selection. So I would look for a motion to approve MSBA as our superintendent search firm.
So moved, and I'd like to request a roll call on this, please.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All right, now we'll have discussion. All right. Any discussion on the search firm interviews? No?
For the record, I was not able to attend that meeting, so I'll be abstaining from.
All right, thank you.
No.
No?
don't have
Okay,
any.
very good. So, just to bring everybody up to speed that's sitting over here, we did have interviews with 3 firms a few weeks back, and there were 4 board members available that night for those interviews. And out of the 4 firms, I think we felt that MSBA was the one that will help us move forward the process the best. So with that, is there any other discussion? All right. So we'll have a roll call for this vote. Moving forward to approve MSBA as the superintendent search firm and approving a contract to move forward. Mr. Scully,
I abstain.
Mr. English,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartz,
Yes.
Dr. Taylor, Mr. Williams,
I was unable to attend, so I will abstain.
Mr. Pollard, and I will be a yes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda will be the cell phone stipends. I'd look for a motion to approve the cell phone stipends as presented. Any discussion on this? Everybody get a chance to review those? All right.
During,
Mr.
during our discussion last time, we talked about some security controls that aren't necessarily part of the vote, but I would just be curious if we move forward with any
Yeah,
of those.
I'll let Dr. Gooch take that, because I know he's prepared to take some action with that.
Yeah, so we actually have, sorry, I thought this was humming backwards. We have an all administration meeting tomorrow, and that will be one of the expectations that I inform the administration on tomorrow, that this, to accept the stipend, the expectation from the district would be to have a lock feature on their phones.
Is there any sort of waiver, like, not a waiver, but you have to sign anything saying you'll follow these specific rules, anything like that at this point?
I mean, we have our technology.
It's you.
We have our technology acknowledgement that encompasses computers and everything, just acceptable use policy. And that is, I'd have to double check, but I believe cell phone might be included.
But this is their personal cell phone, right?
Well, that's true. and
It's tricky.
It was. It wasn't originally. It is now technically, but so we can look at what we have as our acceptable use policy to see if we can include that in there. But as of the first part of the agreement or the administration discussion tomorrow will be to acknowledge the locking of it. So I can put the language in there and
We can
if
get,
we- and if we'd like
we can
to
get a
add-
written information
Yeah.
one way or another.
if we would like to add add something else separate from the acceptable use and the technology agreement as a staff device, then I can add that.
Yeah, I don't think that that's necessarily a board level discussion. Just whatever I just want you to think about it and do what you think is right.
Yeah. That was part of the discussion as well. The discussion with that is there's a fairly, depending on what level of VPN, there's an additional cost. So does the district want to help provide that additional cost to each individual person or not? If you're doing that, you're talking about an additional $15 approximately per person per month. So, I mean, it's something we could consider. It was something that there's a few of us who have them, and then there's a whole bunch that don't and don't know anything about them, so it would require quite a bit of education on them. But as far as that being the initial requirement, that one was one that I wasn't quite going to move forward with yet until I had a little bit more discussion with our technology director on it.
Yeah, considering the nature of the business, I don't know that it's necessary, but if you had a document that people were signing saying, hey, I'm not going to use student, personal information on my device, et cetera, et cetera.
We also make sure the staff's privacy is protected in that agreement. There's lines that might accidentally be crossed when something happens and the district needs information, the staff still has right to privacy.
All right. Any further discussion on that item? All right. All in favor of approving the cell phone stipends as presented, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The background checks for school board candidates. On this item, I'd look for a motion to adopt the following legislative platform statement as a board. That statement is, the Grain Valley School District, Grain Valley School District School Board supports legislation that would require candidates for school board to submit to a criminal background check for the limited purpose of verifying that the candidate is eligible to run for school board. Thank you. Any discussion on that item?
Is it me now or you? Okay.
Is this in addition to what the MEC requires?
Well, I don't know that the MEC is requiring anything. So there's,
I don't have anything in my background. I'm just.
Right, no, there's
just
there's
throwing that- just
there's a
throwing that out.
conflict between what our policies say and what MSBA says we can do and what state statute says is allowed to be done. So the legislature needs to come together and fix the problem at the end of the day. In short.
Requiring a background check would be the verification for several of the other requirements that it takes to be a board member. So, you know, you're required to meet certain expectations, but there's really no accountability towards it. It's really on the candidate that you either comply or you don't comply, but there's no other verification. I don't think our board is unique. I think other boards across the state are advocating for this in a positive way, and we're gonna add our name and voice to that and try to help get that cleaned up.
Yeah.
In fact, this policy is on the agenda tonight for discussion because of other changes, you know, so it does evolve, and I think this board wants it to continue to evolve.
So as Dr. Welly and I have worked through this and continued to try and source this out with information, what it seems to be is there's no real way to determine who's going to be the holder of that background check information. Would it be one person of the school board? Would it be, you know, because the school board's not accountable to or doesn't have a boss, doesn't have an HR, so where does that go? Not the way everything's written as of now. Yeah, they would have to fix the problem, yeah. So, all right, any more discussion on that item? All right, all in favor of approving or adopting the legislation platform statement as a board, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. That will move us to board member key cards for building access. So this is one of the items that has been just discussed with trying to determine if board members should have access to, say, this building or other buildings, or just where we're at with this as a board. Did MSBA have any type of stance on this?
The informal interaction that I had was with legal was that they weren't sure the why. They weren't sure that the why on it would justify providing access to individual board members. But there wasn't any guidance from a policy standpoint unless we tell them. If we tell them that we want to move forward with such a thing, then they might have a recommendation. But the initial reaction was that, you know, they didn't know where to start on that because they weren't aware of anybody who has done this as a matter of policy, and so they didn't have a place for us to start. If it is something that the board wants to move forward with, I don't think it has to be a policy solution. Like, for example, if it's something very specific that we're trying to solve and it's for one or two board members, I think the motion would be for the board to authorize the superintendent to issue limited access to, and then you name the individuals that you want to give the access to. So I think you can do it by resolution, and that way it solves, if there's a problem if there's a problem we're solving right now, rather than fixing it with a great big hammer, we can be a little bit more strategic about how we solve it. And so MSBA would actually recommend, if you can find a solution other than a policy on it, to do that. So it is within your authority to do. It's whatever problem it is we're trying to solve.
So I'll just jump in if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I am opposed to the board the whole board having just access to every building within the district. I just don't know that that's a great idea. I also am opposed to just a few board members having access. I think it's kind of an all or none, in my mind, kind of thing. So really then my questions are around the logistics. If it is easy for Dr. Gooch or Dr. Welly to say, oh, well, the board needs access to the high school tonight. Let me turn that on real quick. And it's like flipping a switch and we all have access, or we all have a meeting here and we want to have access to this building. We can turn it on real quick and then turn it back off. I think that like minimum necessary approach works. But if it's not easy, if it really is like, I've heard like work orders and things like that have to be introduced to give the board access to anything and then take it away, and it's a lot of work for a lot of people, I'm not sure that the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, if for me to grant somebody access or get somebody access, I enter a work order. So from that standpoint, personally, I think it's just easier for me to go unlock the door or hold the door open. But but if it's a, and similarly, if it's making sure that each board member has access to this building at 5:30 p.m. 2 Thursdays a month, like that schedule's, you've already set that for the year. So we can default that in there, and it's done. Or I can remember to unlock the front door at 5:30 2 Thursdays a month and let you in. So it's really like, it just depends on what the hurdle is or what the issue is. I think there's always multiple ways to solve a problem.
Yeah.
But if this is the best way to solve something, then then that's what we'll do.
When I've been with you in the high school, for example, the key card gets you in the building, but then to get in rooms or to do whatever, you have to have a key. So I'm not sure that the key card really is that meaningful in a lot of places. I will admit that when I'm in this building and it's 10 o'clock at night and I go to the restroom and then I'm blocked and I have to bang on a door, that is annoying. But I'm not sure that that's worth a key card for
and
that.
I've in the last couple of months, I've tried to get better at making sure that the places now that I know where board members move around, coming and going in this building, that because we want you to feel welcome back into the meeting part of the building. So we're not trying to lock you out. So we are trying to be better about, the design of the building, of course, was around safety and security. But on evenings that we have board meetings, we also want you to be able to move about throughout the building as well and come and go. And these are low risk evenings. These are low risk events.
I would also like to reiterate, as part of our conversation we had the other night on this issue, that minimum necessary, I think, needs to be broader. In other words, we don't want our high school teachers necessarily having access to our elementary schools, which is a slightly different topic, but along the same lines.
Yeah, and we're pleased to report that that's been buttoned up. We took advantage of a upgrade to software this summer to really purge anyone who had access to a different building, either because of their job assignment or their coaching duties or whatever it is. If those hadn't been purged before, the whole thing was purged and it was kind of rebuilt from zero. So if we drew it in too tight, those people will let us know, and then we can deal with it on a case-by-case basis of granting back that limited access again. But no, appreciate you bringing that to our attention. But yeah, that's all been buttoned up.
I don't have any other questions.
Yeah, the policy, there's several policies that remind us that, you know, as a board member, you have authority when there are four or more of you together. And so we haven't really even talked about those, but then there's two other policies specific to this matter. And one of them deals with that any visitor to a school, including a board member, is expected to follow the security protocols of the buildings. And the second policy is the policy that specifically addresses that the superintendent has the authority to issue key cards to employees. And since school board members are not employees, that policy does not authorize me to do so. So the board would either have to amend the policy, create a new policy, or MSBA's initial reaction was there might be a non-policy solution to it. But it's not an action item tonight, but if the board decides that's the direction they want to go, then we would come back with that motion language and make sure we've run that past legal.
So
If that's what we do.
Do you have another question? You stated key cards. What about IDs? Because we all get an ID. Is that a violation of policy?
I do not believe it's a violation, and your IDs are not staff IDs. You have school board IDs that are intentionally a different color. We want people to, when you're in a situation, you may be in a public situation, you could be visiting a school. I think it's important that you're able to have an ID that identifies you as a school board member, but yet that ID does not necessarily grant you rights and privileges of an employee of the district. It gets you the rights and privileges of a school board member, which is it's kind of its own thing. So no, I'm confident we are not in violation of policy on the photo IDs.
I'm just not sure it's necessary that we have key cards. I know this is a lot of discussion. I know I haven't had any access problems and don't see the need for it. So then I also don't want to put in a ton of effort and work and change in policy or those types of things if we're not going to utilize it, or if it's not, like, I'm not sure as to why we do need it or what benefit that would be. So
I do feel like there was a point when this was a much bigger problem, when we were meeting at North Middle School and then the high school, and we were parking in different parking lots, and you'd have to walk around the building to look for a door that was open. There was a time when this was really kind of painful, to be honest. And now that we meet here most of the time, you know, I don't know that it's the issue that it was.
And if there are more specific reasons that we need to talk about, maybe have an executive session.
Okay. Any additional discussion for tonight? No? All right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for now, we'll leave it as a open item, and we'll see if it comes back up on the agenda. Yeah, I think for tonight, we'll leave it there. And we'll see if it comes back up. All right. So that will take us to new business. And that'll take us to the Director of Communications, full-time, or one FTE. I would look for a motion to add the role of Director of Communications.
So moved.
Dr. Welly, can you
Yes.
provide some background?
Yes. The board had previously, a couple of years ago, authorized a communications director role, and we ended up not using that role. We did fill an FTE that we classified as communications specialist, but we would like to reestablish a director level role. We will not actually be adding an FTE. We just want to elevate our a communications, more of a leadership position. We also want to protect. I don't want you to have the impression that I'm having you upgrade the specialist role to a director role. I just want the title director. And once we have a director, then I'd like to make a decision about the communications specialist role. And the reason for that will make more sense later. But when we're all done and all the dominoes have fallen, I don't want any more FTEs than we have right now. But I would like a director level position, and then I would like another employee that maybe has a different job classification, if that makes sense. So it could end up being a 2-person department instead of a 1-person department. But because it has been a couple of years, it felt like I needed to bring this back so that you could vote and authorize a director level position. The job I made with the timing for the summer and the back to school, I did make the executive decision to post the director position. And so I can tell you it's got a lot of attention. We have nearly 40 applicants for the role. They look very promising. So we're confident that we are going to have director level material. Of course, I'm not going to bring you a director if you don't authorize us to have the position. So we will reclassify the posting if this goes south for me tonight. But with it being summer and we're approaching back to school, I just wanted you to know that's not normally how that works. I normally ask you to act first, but I did go out on a limb on that one. So. Yeah, so the director would be classified as our PIO and would have a lot of coordinating responsibilities, and also has the potential to have supervisory responsibilities if it was a 2-person department. And we've posted the starting base salary at $87,210. So it's a director level salary as well. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, serving typical public information officer duties would also manage the website, any district publications, coordinate social media strategy, coordinate the electric parent notification system, collect and analyze data to advise leadership in the improvement of communications, provide staff training and communication on related topics, and then also the coordination of community engagement programming. So we have multiple community engagement efforts that go on that might currently fall under other umbrellas that over the next couple of years, once this person gets like the core communications piece, we want our director of communications to know there might be other duties that become a key part of their responsibility. It wouldn't be this first year, but I'll give you one example. Like a responsibility like Bright Futures is so big to our core. Bright Futures would be an example of something that it might make sense given the qualities of a certain individual who serves as director of communications. They could also coordinate either our Bright Futures program or some other community-wide program that's an operation of the school district.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Are there things that are under other directors currently that this would?
Yes, and those things can all change over time, or you have another director position that becomes available. It allows Dr. Allen, anybody that's under her umbrella, she gets to kind of reevaluate where the duties fall. And we want our director to know, look, if you come in as a director level, the duties are going to be this on day one, but at some point it's going to be more. When you're really rolling in this, we're going to have another layer that we're likely to add.
The hope is that it just depends on the individual.
Yes. Yeah.
So the initial duties, will they also include being the traffic cop in instances of, PR as far as
Yes.
any
Yeah.
incidents at buildings, things like that?
Yes. And really what our director of communications would do would allow Dr. Allen to serve the principals who are dealing with the crisis. A typical crisis has the principals engaged in that. So Dr. Allen's providing the support there. Dr. Gooch is doing his job with safety and security, and the school resource officer and other community resources. And our director of communications can take a leadership role on dealing with the media and internal and external communications at that time. Yes, but they would be drafting them consistent with the crisis response plan and the communications plan that's in place.
Okay. Any additional questions on that? All right. If you're in favor of adding the role, the 1 FTE for Director of Communications, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, that will take us to policies. The next 3 bunches of policies will be for review tonight. Any of them that do not require edits or action to be taken will be brought back at the board meeting in consent agenda for approval. The first item will be policy BBFA, board member conflict of interest and financial disclosure. This policy is required to be reviewed every 2 years to allow board members to continue to fill out the MEC short form. We just do it every year, just so we don't lapse on that. Is there any discussion on this policy? There's no changes to it. All right. That will take us to the MSBA 2025B. This is a second reading for all of the policies listed below. We will start with EGAA copyright compliance. What changed on this one?
So they made some changes since the pandemic. So there's 2 trends highlighted in these amendments. First, one-to-one instruction programs with digital instructional materials are increasingly common. And then we have more supplementary instruction materials that were formerly kept on classroom walls or bookshelves that are now shared in a virtual space. And so this more explicitly gives protections to teachers to use instructional materials in a digital fashion. This and the rest of this first cluster, the MSBA 2025B, these first 5 policies, I mean, the whole group, there's a lot of clarifications, and as the administration, we're like, these are all helpful in how they're clarifying the guidance, but there's really nothing earth-shattering in really any of these first 5. But this one specifically is to copyright.
Any questions or comments on EGAA? All right, that will take us to GBE, staff health and safety.
So MSBA's made revisions to this one to remove details about medical examinations for bus drivers. It's unnecessary to have the language in board policy. It doesn't mean that we don't have to comply with the law, but it's already in the law, and they just felt like this was a helpful. Yeah, it was redundant. It was a helpful cleanup.
Okay. Any questions on that one? That will move us to IGBB, programs for gifted students.
Yeah, so here MSBA is referencing guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education instead of labeling it, spelling it all out again and being redundant. So, as the guidance changes, we don't want to have to remember to go back and change all the policy language. So we're just making a reference to the guidance.
All right. Any questions on IGBB? Okay. That will move us to KB, Public Information Program.
Revisions being made to this to align the policy language to MSIP 6 when it comes to communications and engaging our public.
Any questions or comments on KB, Public Information Program? All right. That will move us to KK, Visitors to District Property and Events.
So one change in the law that happened was, was a result of litigation in Missouri, that if somebody is prohibited from being on property, that there ought to be, the courts have found that there ought to be an explicit appeal process for such an action. And I think this came about because somebody along the way was prohibited from, they were prohibited from attending board meetings. I think they were prohibited from attending anything, but it was based on their behavior at a board meeting. And so because it was that letter of prohibition was the end of the story, they felt like that as a public meeting space, school board the criteria for somebody to be, yes, you can be asked to leave because of your behavior, but for you to never be allowed back into a public meeting like this, that the bar should be a little higher, or at least there should be an explicit process for appeal. So that's what this policy corrects.
Do we have to create then an appeal process policy for this, or do we have something like that already? Is that
All we
for
have
them to go
all
through?
we have to do if we tell somebody, basically we issue a no trespassing letter. We just have to be explicit about why they're getting their letter and that they have a right to an appeal.
But we don't have to define what that appeal process
It doesn't
looks
doesn't
like.
have to be in the policy.
So we then can create that appeal
Yeah.
process however and whenever, and it doesn't have to be a part of policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be similar to the appeals we heard earlier this year. I mean, there really was no
It's really a hearing before the,
regulated way to run that. It's just up to the board on how they run that.
Yeah. But somebody would be given basically another round, a level of due process.
In the highlighted portion that was sent to us, all visitors during business hours, including board members, must sign or check in the
You
building office prior to proceeding elsewhere in the building.
Yes. So you received policy KK for two different reasons, and so we may have interlinked which one you got for which. That was for the discussion that we had on the key card access.
Okay.
That's why that was highlighted, if that was the way that was in your packet, so I apologize.
All right.
Do you have this?
We have that as well.
Okay. So it was highlighted in both. Okay. It's just redundant then. So it did not need to be highlighted in yellow. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Jared, what was that?
Correct.
All right. Any comments, questions on KK change? Very good. That will take us to MSBA 2025C policies. We'll start with BBBA 1, board member qualifications.
Very good. MSBA has updated this policy based on the passage of House Bill 199 this last session, which created a new requirement for candidates running on school boards. I noticed that they didn't highlight the change. Do you recognize what might be different here? Was it the last one? There's usually a highlight.
Yeah.
I mean, I read through it and I didn't have an issue with any of them, but I guess I didn't notice that none of them were highlighted, but this is how it came. And then I will say, you notice that you got 2 sets of MSBA revisions, and they have given us a heads up that to expect at least 2 more rounds yet this calendar year of more revisions. So there'll be more law change based policy revisions that are coming. So this is a C. We could see a D and an E and maybe an F yet from them. Dr. Allen?
It mentions in the highlight, the gray highlight, that it's outlined in that particular statute, and that particular statute seems to tie to both 7 and 8. So I would have to guess that something
Okay.
in 7 and 8. but
Thank you.
They both seem sensical.
Question around oath of office. It states that you qualify when you take the oath of office, and then it says sign the oath. Do we do that? I don't remember that.
Do we sign an oath?
Oh,
Yeah,
we do
Get their
sign it?
autographs?
Okay.
yeah.
It's
Miss
No, doesn't
Clappin
ring a bell.
puts it in front of you when you sit back down.
You get so distracted by the fanfare, you forget.
Yeah,
that you-
all the clapping and cheering. Yeah, that's right.
And it does say newly elected. So if you're re-elected, are we required to do the oath again?
I think you do have to give the oath for your new term. But when you're reelected, you're already qualified.
You've already done it. You're just
It's a
re-elected.
good reminder.
There's a separate policy just for oath of office, I'm pretty sure.
All right. All right. Any additional comments or questions on BBA-1? BBBA-1. All right. That will take us to IGBI, homeschooling for other educational options.
I will,
Well,
s-
and other educational options, sorry.
I will say for this batch of policies, the 2 major themes are students who are not otherwise students of ours, like their homeschool or some version of homeschool, or they're virtual. They now have access to our sports and activities. So that's one of the main themes. The second main theme is the prohibition of the use of cell phones by students or to have them out from bell to bell. So all these policies all are being adjusted for those 2 reasons. So the homeschooling and other educational options. So this eliminates the annual written declaration of homeschooling, which we didn't expect anyway. So the homeschool parents didn't want to comply with this, and honestly, like, it's silly. So it just clarifies they don't have to do that anymore. And then MSBA has made some other clarifying changes to the policy, including the language family-paced education. So you'll see that now through the policies. There is, there's a lot of homeschooling families that when it was educational savings account vouchers were made eligible to homeschool families, the homeschool family said, we don't want your voucher because we don't want the regulations. Like, we're homeschooling and we want to keep it the way it is. And so what the legislature did to give those families options is they created a category called family-paced education. And these are homeschooled families who do accept the ESE voucher or the whatever I forget now. I've said it once, but then I forgot what we're calling it. But they're willing to accept the voucher. So there's just 2 different classifications of homeschool parents. From a school district perspective, it's the same thing. It only matters their relationship with the voucher program. So that's what the first one does, is it just clarifies those 2 things. But both of them have, yes, that's a good clarification. Both classifications of homeschool families have access to our activities moving forward, effective immediately.
What was that?
Yeah. There are still some requirements.
Okay. Any additional questions on IGBI? that will take us to IGCD, virtual courses.
So this policy has had a sentence added about virtual course enrollment and due process. Sometimes when students misbehave, a district will move the student to virtual courses or an alternative school. And 2 courts have held that removing a student from the school environment may trigger the need for due process, even if the student continues to be educated because the student has been denied intangible benefit of attending public school. So based on those court cases, there's just clarification in the language. And we certainly don't have a problem with the clarification.
All right. Any questions on IGCD? All right. That will move us to IGCDA, full-time MOCAP virtual courses.
This also includes changes due to the passage of Senate Bill 63 requiring school districts to allow homeschool or family-paced education or virtual school students to participate in athletics, fine art activities, and integrated co-curricular activities that the district offers if the student meets other eligibility criteria. And I'll take this opportunity to add, if there's an extracurricular activity that has a course tied to it, then the student needs to also take that course. So if you want to be in marching band is a class, but then it is also an extracurricular activity. So, and we already have at least one example that we're anticipating for the upcoming school year where we will have a student who is enrolled just for marching band class, and then we'll be in the marching band after school.
So and I may be looking at a different policy, but in a situation where we have a high demand program, what is the requirement, excuse me, that we allow a child that's homeschooled to participate?
If whether it's high demand or not, if it's a program that does cuts, then that student needs to meet the same standard as anyone else who makes the cut. If it is a program that does not have cuts, then we make room for the student.
Okay. So just football, for example, I don't know if we have cuts or
We'll
not.
just say baseball because there are.
Baseball.
Yeah.
How do we, so there's a situation where all the kids try out. I don't care if they're homeschooled or not. It's just you select X number of kids.
Yep. Build your team.
There have been situations in the past, not necessarily in Green Valley, just that I read about, where the child was actually older than our child. How do we verify when it's not a kid that's in our system?
Yeah, you still have to meet those standards. You still you have to be a resident in that school, and if it's a middle school or elementary school, you have to be a resident in that neighborhood, in that attendance area. You have to meet the other criteria, including academic criteria. You have to be academically eligible. Now, the source of that is typically from a transcript we would get from another school, and in this case, it's a transcript that we get from the homeschooling official. So, but they have to meet all the same standards.
So in order to participate in baseball, let's say do they have to enroll in the district? How are they covered by insurance, things like that?
I don't know the answer to the insurance question, but they do not need to be enrolled in school. If it involves a course like marching band, then they need to be enrolled for the sake of that course. But a baseball player would not need to be enrolled.
How do
as
they
a
ride our
student.
bus? How are they covered?
We would not be obligated to provide transportation.
Okay. Are we going to?
No, because after school we're only transporting kids from the school to their home, we're not transporting kids to the school at the end of the day,
Well,
and we're not transporting kids home.
what I mean
Oh,
is
to games.
to
yes.
games.
Yeah, we would. They would have the same. They would have the same rights and protections as anyone else on that team. Now, like a lot of really good legislation, sometimes there's gaps. So I'm sure in the first couple of years of execution of this, there will be things that'll need to be cleaned up.
Can
So
you check
I
with-
can't guarantee you that we're.
Can you check with music on that part of it?
I do know as an athletic parent, you sign away all your rights with MISHA before you get to enroll in anything that's a MISHA-related activity or sport. All liability becomes on the parent. But it's not
Even if they're on a
bad
bus?
That would be something that's not addressed in the parent agreements, so, yeah.
Right, and
All
I
occupants
can,
should be covered, but
yeah, I think in that, I can make an assumption, and I will clarify with music, but I would make an assumption that they would still be a Grain Valley participant, therefore covered under Grain Valley's insurance, but I'll double check.
And likewise, as a district, we would hold the same liability that we would anybody else's kid.
Yeah. So from a structure standpoint, I'm assuming if they want to participate, they're going to have to sign all the student handbooks and all the different things.
Yes.
pay the fees,
What's that?
pay the
Pay
fees.
the fees, all the,
Yep.
Activities handbooks. Behavior, academics, immunizations, all of those same requirements would have to be given prior to joining.
okay.
While all the school bus stuff is happening, the district would still be receiving property tax. Still be receiving revenue from property.
We get everybody's property taxes,
Yeah.
yes.
Correct, yeah. You mentioned something about a rebate or credit, and I just.
Oh,
Oh,
the
the voucher
voucher.
from the state?
Voucher,
Yeah. You have to sign up for that, and it's a certain income level, and there's,
The voucher is only a subtraction for us. We don't benefit from the voucher. We only lose the voucher.
Covered on all the
Yes.
time commitments.
Correct. That are in that activity, yes. Yes.
I actually thought this was already the policy. I'm a little surprised. I thought we allowed
You,
homeschool.
it's a little different. You had to be a part-time student. Yeah. So that part is it's not a major shift for us, but philosophically, statewide, it's a big shift. The question is, do we expect an influx? We, from our demography study, we know that we already have 95% of the market share within our school district. So there aren't many kids that live within Grain Valley who don't attend our schools already. So even if they all showed up to pick an activity, I don't think it'll be overwhelming to us.
That many, possibly our current homeschool students that are involved in some way, shape, or form may be less involved in the classroom potentially and still get the benefits of the activities. That could be a possibility.
Right, and several of our families who homeschool but had an interest in our activities, they were already finding a way to make that happen by
Because they had to be involved.
picking a couple of courses and yeah. So, that's been working out really well for those families. So they wouldn't have to do those courses moving forward, but they still could. They, maybe being a part-time in-person student with us and part-time homeschool works for them. They have that flexibility.
all right. Any additional comments on that one? Okay. That will move us to IGD, district-sponsored extracurricular activities and groups.
This policy is updated again for Senate Bill 39. Actually, Senate Bill 39 passed a couple of sessions ago. Prohibits student athletes from competing in athletic competitions designated for the biological sex opposite to the biological sex stated on the student's birth certificate or other government record. The birth certificate or record relied upon must have been created at the time of birth or soon after. So, no, I would note, though, for the board, this law is currently set to expire in August of 2027. And the language is in this policy is not required to be in policy, but we are required to follow the law. But since it is the law, I do think it is helpful to have it stated in policy. And if it truly does sunset in 2 years and we change the policy again, then I think we just change the policy at that time.
Is that bottom paragraph that was in there, that whole paragraph was added, is that brand new, assuming language at the bottom?
On page 2,
Yes, and
it is new. It is new to this policy. That guidance is not new. We were already acting under that guidance, but it is new to have it clearly stated in this policy. This does not mark a functional change for how we operate.
All right. Any additional comments on IGD? Okay, that will take us to IGDAA, resident participant student involvement in activities and events.
So this is, although alphabetically it's near the end, fundamentally this is really the new policy to deal with resident participant students, and that's really what MSHA is recommending as a label, an MSBA, to say these are students who live in your district but aren't enrolled as students, so they are resident participants, and they want to be involved in activities and events. And so we've kind of talked about this on our way to here, but this is the policy that spells it all out.
And this is a brand new policy. This is not an update.
That's correct. This one is brand new, and we have to comply with the law that it references. So the way they've captured it in this policy, we are perfectly fine with administratively.
All right. Any questions or comments on IGDAA?
And I did highlight a couple clarifications. I want to make sure that the board hears and understands that for all the flexibility of who this applies to, it does not apply to students attending private schools or parochial schools. So if you're attending another school, then this change wasn't for you. This change was for homeschool students and virtual students. And it also does not provide access to all events and activities, but it certainly does provide access to most. I've already talked about that one. Dr. Allen mentioned another one. And this law goes into effect August 28th, 2025. And we're already, I mean, because enrollment and registration is going on, like we're already really living this.
Anything additional on that?
That's it. Thank you.
Yep. All right, very good. That will take us to our last policy. JFCD, student use of personal communication devices.
So we already actually had a policy that prohibited phone use during the school day, but because we know this is such a big deal, MSBA created and recommends this standalone policy. This requires districts to adopt a policy that prohibits student use of personal communication devices during the school day. Though the law has exceptions, students are generally not permitted to use phones, smartwatches, personal laptops, tablets, or other electronic personal communication devices during instructional time, meals timed, breaks, time between classes, or study halls. Policy applies to all students within the district starting this school year and all subsequent school years until August 28th of 2032. So this one does have a sunset built in. District employees and volunteers who act in good faith and follow the disciplinary procedures and measures adopted in this policy by the school board will be held harmless and immune from any liability for their actions. So we've been trying to operate mostly under these guidance as it is, and so it's not a huge change for us. The high school will be the school that experiences an impact by this. The other K-8, we were already no phones in your person. At the high school level, you can have your phone on your person. We just can't see it. And where that's a big change at the high school is they have 3 passing periods, or they have, they're 4 blocks, so there's 3 passing periods between classes. No phones can be out. Lunchtime, no phones. So those will be the tough times for this. We've already put this out from a district level, just letting everybody know. You've maybe seen some reactions on social media. My general gauge is that it mostly has support of the general population.
That applies to earbuds, phones, everything.
Yes, and although students can have their district issued Chromebook, if they have, and I don't know that we even allow personal laptops from students, but they would not be able to communicate using their personal devices of any type during the day. So yeah, having music in your ears or anything else is all prohibited, bell to bell. So I think this will be a big adjustment for some kids, but I'm confident in the high school to come up with a plan as a faculty of how they're going to administer this, and they're gonna certainly have district level support as they help kids with this new transition, and with teachers. Of all the things that we put on our teachers, this is on that list of things we wish we didn't have to deal with. But if we all deal with it consistently, it makes it easier on everybody if it's consistent expectations and consistent enforcement.
Is there any data from districts that have already, enforced it or, done this to where it improves? Or
I haven't seen that. If it's out there,
You know what I'm
Dr.
saying?
Allen, are you starting to see anything like that?
Yeah, I think there's, in the last few years, there's a lot of because I did some personal research when it sounded like that this was gonna pass, and to kind of look, but I will tell you, starting last year, we were hearing from teachers that they had a lot of concerns about the social interactions of students, distraction during class, that sort of thing. And so I had 70 teachers participate in the Anxious Generation book study with me, which is a very popular book right now that basically has culminated a whole bunch of data over the years for both boys and girls separately through the teen years, and what impact it has on them and how important it is to disconnect. So I feel like I have a core group of 70 teachers who are already bought in before this school year. So I hope that really helps kind of the like you said, the consistency piece, that everybody thinks this really is what's best for kids, and data and research behind why.
Okay. So this is a little bit off topic, but on topic a little bit. So is there a way that the district can get involved, or another group associated with the district that can get involved, to pull, starting at elementary school, parents together to make a pledge to keep their children, their students, off of devices, so that it starts to wean this out, so it's not even a problem anymore? I don't know how we can tackle that starting at a young age so it just goes away.
We've had some of our PTA take on these efforts at the elementary. They've brought in companies like Screen Sanity at Matthews. that's been very well received for the parents who attend and that are, part of it. I mean, I do think that
Is it
there's-
continuing? I mean, or did it just go away?
I think there's a desire for other buildings to try it. I wish we would have had more participation. And I don't know how, is that a different effort that we take in trying to get more parents there to talk about these things? I think I had about 25 parents in attendance that night. We were probably 350 students at that time, maybe. I don't know, over 300. So, and we publicized it for about 5 months, brought in dinner. Like, I tried to check,
Wow.
all those boxes. But I also think even as Dr. Allen mentioned, whether it's, the anxious generation or other stuff, I think families and parents are starting to slowly see this more as a trend and as a concern. And so I do wonder if we had maybe a more concerted effort. It's a very inexpensive program to kind of bring in and let parents, I think of it almost like our committees and groups that get together to talk about it. It's not someone lecturing you, telling you what to do with a device with your kid, but thinking through scenarios and what do you do and what do you do and how do we handle this? And so those conversations that we had were, I feel like those 25 parents were really like excited and talking about how to handle that. So I think it's something we could continue to push with maybe elementary admin, like you mentioned, or work with PTAs. Our PTA helped pay for it.
I mean, I don't know, Jared, where you're at, or Aaron, or Lance, but I mean, when my soon-to-be second grader is telling me that she's ready for her cell phone, I see that as a problem.
There are those pushes out there, those organizations, even parents getting together, and I think because it's such a social thing and kids wanting it because their friend has it and yada yada yada, parents being on the same page with this, and I think there has been a push. I know there's one called Wait Till 8, which is wait until 8th grade to get a phone for your kid, and parents have to sign off, on that to do that. But it's hard because if all their friends have them and they're, constantly annoying their parents to get that. But yeah, it has to be, I think, there has to be a groundswell.
Yeah,
of
it
people
has to be a
saying-
community effort,
It
not
does.
just a one-off effort.
Well, and that's, I guess, where I'm incredibly frustrated with the state. I think that this is a major overreach by the state of Missouri. I really feel like this is a local decision that should be made by school boards, not, and communities, not by the state telling us whether or not they want kids to have phones. So I'm opposed to the whole policy. I understand it's law. I'm going to vote yes on it, but I don't like the fact that the state has overreached, and I think it's a very personal decision. So, I think having a policy, I think our other policy was probably a decent policy. It just needed to be enforced. And I think that's my concern is it wasn't, I could walk through some of our buildings and see that it wasn't being enforced. So, again, it is what it is. I just wish they would have not delved into
Yeah.
what
So
I think is a
to
personal
that
decision.
statement, I mean, what is our plan for enforcement? I mean, how has there been any communication with the high school about these are the steps we're going to take if it's not being enforced? I mean, being that it is law now.
They had already updated their handbooks for the school year, which were, I think on last month's board report. So you all have access to that as well as it's on their websites. And it's also something that parents are required to go through during the enrollment process. But then, of course, there'll also be expectations held with students when school starts back up. That's one of the heaviest things that they'll hit. But yeah, they've got it pretty clearly outlined, the consequences that are associated with when phones are seen, what happens each time.
Right. I mean, from a staff standpoint, I mean, now this just adding to their duties. Now you're babysitters of the phone, not teaching. I mean, is there a worry that I need to teach, not babysit the phone, so I'm just going to let it go?
I think there's worries on all sides of it. being a former teacher, you're on a part of a team or in a hallway or in a department. If one teacher doesn't follow through, that's going to impact everybody around you. So really holding true as a staff that we're all following that same consistent expectation is going to be the first step. So just building that next week when teachers return. It just takes 1 week link for the kids to go, but he or she lets me do it. You know, I mean, it just becomes an issue. So starting with staff, getting parent support, and then just being really consistent with kids. I will tell you, being in both of our middle schools, you know, the phones aren't even allowed outside the locker, and we've never had an issue. So they go to high school with that expectation. So I do see this as the biggest struggle with maybe our juniors and seniors. But I think over time it'll become easier. But I think this will be our hardest year, for sure.
Can we kind of note, just to maybe follow up, you know, early winter, mid-fall, and hear from the educators themselves, maybe a couple from the high school building, maybe a middle school, to see how it's affecting their day, how it's going. The improvements would just be able to hear from them directly, and if there's any other support that we can get. Do that. That's a good idea.
Include an update.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Is it making a difference?
Or do we all need to go to Jeff City and
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be an
have a
adjustment
conversation?
for some parents too, because parents are used to texting their kids in the middle of the day, and that's going to change. So I think
Well,
you're going to
and-
have some parents that
Yeah.
need it.
Not
adjust.
going off on the safety tangent, but being able to connect with your kid through the day, you know, is convenient, and I think, yeah, I think it's going to be a big change for some. If I had a junior and senior, same thing. How's your day going? You know. Anyway, it's curious to see how it goes over. It's going over. We just hope it goes well.
One way or another. All right. Any additional comments on JFCD? Yeah. That'd be good. Yeah. All right. Very good. So we do have Ms. Shackles. This is your last day today.
We want to thank Ms. Shackles for her 2 years of service with us in communications. She's done a great job, and we're really excited that she has an opportunity for more responsibilities and a promotion in a similar role in a neighboring district. So we wish you all the best, Hannah, and thank you very much for all your help.
Very good. Yep. All right. Roll call. Aaron? Yes. Jared? Yes. Sarah? Yes. Julie? Jason? Lance? Yes. All right. Thank you for coming.